when I was younger, maybe in my teens, late teens, early 20s, I had a dream that
I hope.
this was quite a literal dream.
Okay.
Where I was visited by a young girl who told me that on May 11th, I would die in a bus accident.
What the fuck kind of dreams are you having?
I don't know, but...
Wait, how old were you?
Probably in my late teens, early 20s.
That's fucked.
Yeah, so every May 11th, I try to ride as many buses as possible. Anyway, what's new with you, Madison?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was dying for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, you had terminal bronchitis. We didn't think you'd make it,
yeah,
to be honest.
I didn't think I'd make it either. Yeah, I had gotten... David and I have just been like constantly sick since Thanksgiving. And then we were like on the mend, and then we both had gotten the flu, which just like fucked up our lungs.
Right.
There's still a little remnants of it, but you know, we're overall better. But yeah, it was not great. And then of course technology failed.
Right.
Which was just tragic.
I mean, the bronchitis was probably the more serious thing.
Probably, but
you didn't let it bronch you.
I didn't. The technology not working was probably more emotionally tumultuous.
We both looked at the technology.
Yeah, the technology that was failing. It seems to be working now, which is really, really, really great.
If you're hearing this, then it is working.
It's working. Fingers crossed that it continues to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, things have been great.
Mm.
David and I have hurried along with some wedding planning stuff.
Right. The last I heard, you were looking for a venue.
Yes. We just toured our last one yesterday, and I think it's a winner.
Oh, really?
We both came away with it. We're like, it's kind of number one for both of us now.
So you didn't choose Under the Harvey Taylor Bridge?
I did not. I did not choose that location. It was up there, though.
Okay.
It was probably in my top 3.
Try to get it fast because it's very popular.
Yeah, that is very true. It's booking years in advance.
Uh-huh.
Actually, we couldn't even get in. We tried. We had to bribe the person who is under the bridge.
Yeah?
And we didn't have the money.
Oh, gosh.
Didn't have the funds.
So what is the venue that you decided on?
It is called... And my idea for the wedding was like a celestial garden party.
Oh, that's
or
lovely.
Like Midsummer Night's Dream.
Very different.
No, they're the same thing.
Celestial garden party.
A Midsummer Night's Dream.
I saw Midsummer's Night Dream once in high school.
It's like a celestial garden party.
Oh, wonderful. Celestial garden party / Midsummer's Night's Dream.
Yeah. So just like a very lovely, like lots of lights and like pretty flowers and things like that. Just very simple, lots of greenery. And this has all of that.
And what flowers are you going with?
I don't know.
You don't have an idea?
I don't know. But we're probably just going to do fake flowers. Like they have like really nice silk flowers nowadays that look real. And with the amount of allergies that people in my family and friends have, it's probably best to not get real flowers and exasperate that when we're already surrounded by nature.
Oh, gosh. The way that you describe your life and the life of the people around you, you sound like, and I mentioned this once before, a chronically ill, small Elizabethan girl.
I am. I am a chronically ill, small... That's why I started this podcast, Dylan, to tell everybody about my chronically ill, small Elizabethan problems.
You got chronically ill, big Elizabethan problems, if anything.
Yes.
Pale and sickly and on your deathbed.
That's quite... You're just describing who I am. That's just what I'm looking like right now.
I always love the idea of calla lilies at a wedding.
Those are lovely.
Yeah. But I like the idea of silk flowers as well. Yeah. It reminds me of that story of the husband who gets his wife a bouquet of roses. And he says, when the last rose dies, that's when I'll stop loving you. And
then the last one was artificial.
Yeah.
And she's like, when is this going to die?
They're like 2 years after the divorce. It's can this thing fucking die already?
Yeah. Lights it on fire. It still doesn't burn.
Sounds very, very metaphorical.
Yeah.
Well, so you have that set aside. And what is the month that you're planning?
It'll be in May.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so it'll be on a Thursday, actually.
A Thursday in May?
Yeah, a Thursday in May.
Uh-huh.
It'll be on... we have not, like, officially booked the date, but it was available yesterday, so it should be still.
Wonderful.
But 5/21/26 should be the day.
5/21/26. Okay, and that's funny that you bring up that date.
Is it?
Because on 5/21/26, I was planning on having my big birthday bash, where everyone's invited, including you and your fiance.
Okay.
And I was hoping that you could both make it to this birthday bash that I've had planned for several years now.
Oh.
And I don't know. This is kind of blindsiding me.
It's really selfish of me.
Yeah. I don't want to say it, but I'm glad that you did.
I understand. I can see myself. Yeah.
Just you can move your plans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't book it yet.
Okay. So like what are other dates? Just like throwing out.
The following day?
See, that's when I'm having my big bowling bash.
Okay.
It's the post big birthday bowling bash.
Oh, I see.
And I was expecting you to come to that as well.
Oh, okay. What about May 31st?
May 31st is when I'm having my post bowling, after birthday bash.
Oh, your after birthday bash.
Yes, to really celebrate the birthday bash and enjoy the memories that we made during the birthday and bowling bashes.
Wow. That's really lovely. It's really poignant.
And I really expected you to come to that one.
Oh, of course. I wouldn't miss for the world. You know, you know what? Who needs to get married? Not me. I don't want that.
As long as you come to the 3 bashes.
That's it?
Well, there may be more bashes forthcoming.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about earlier then? What about like an April 14th?
That's the pre-birthday bash.
Oh, sorry. See,
so,
yeah. You know what? Just, we don't need to get married. It's fine.
I have so many birthday bashes coming up. I'm very much looking forward to turning 30.
I was going to say, yeah, 30. It's a big one.
It is a very big year.
You're turning 30. It's
Lurdy.
If you're going to have a big birthday bash and multiple before and after, this is the year to do it.
Yeah. And gosh, looks like we made it.
How do you feel?
I feel wonderful.
Yeah?
I feel the best I've felt in my entire life.
I love that.
I am healthy, wealthy, and at peace. I am thriving.
I would say so.
I am feeling like physically good.
Yay! I wish I could say the same.
Well, you've been ill since November.
Yeah.
Which is quite a feat.
Yeah.
Have you written a living will?
You know, I haven't. I probably should. It's really easy. I'm leaving everything to my cats.
Okay.
So,
even the pink slippers that they completely fucked up?
Even the pink slippers that they completely fucked up.
And can you recount again the story of how they somehow found the pink slippers at the bottom of your backpack in your closet?
It's Binks. It's Bowie is too stupid to do anything like this.
Yikes.
I love him to death, but
I hope he's not listening.
It's true. He doesn't know how to listen. Don't worry. Binks is so cute, but he has been a spawn of Satan recently. He has been so badly behaved. It is just wild. Like, everything he knows he's not supposed to do, and he knows he's not supposed to do it, because he'll look at you when he's doing it, and he'll like wait for you to come get him, and if you don't, he'll keep doing it. Like, he does not listen to no. And then what he'll do is he'll sass you afterwards. After you yell at him, he'll like chirp at you and like like yell. Yes. Yeah. Do it again. Let's save that for the story. It's more accurate to the story.
Okay. Talking about echolocation.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, this bastard of a cat. Okay, so my sister had gotten me these really like fluffy pink slippers. Truthfully, I've never worn them because they are like fuzzy and I don't want to get them dirty. How am I supposed to wear them outside in dirt when they're like these like pink fluffy slippers?
Right.
They're like not inside house slippers. They're outside slippers, but they're like made for inside.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
So I have these.
Hold on. I think we should talk more about these slippers.
No, that's okay. That's quite all right. So I have these slippers, and this cat, because he likes them and he would like just drag them out of wherever he found them, I put them inside a backpack at the bottom of my backpack. I put 2 dresses over top of it, some clothes, so you could not even see it. I didn't think that he saw me do it, but apparently he did. David said he could smell it, which is just bananas to me.
Smell it?
I don't freaking know, Dylan, but I didn't do this in front of him. I wasn't like, Binks, this is where I'm putting them. I just put them in here and like then I threw them in my closet. Okay?
Okay.
So the slippers are at the bottom of the backpack.
Yes.
With clothes on top.
Yes.
Sealed up in my closet.
You're painting the scene for me. I see it.
This fucking cat.
Yes.
Goes in my closet. He opens my closet door. He
Okay.
Okay.
I was about to say how.
Well, so my door doesn't close the full way. So if he wedges himself in enough, he can get it to open up. But he really like tries. Okay. I tied it up the other day and he still got the shoes out of there in the bag. Like, I wish I were fucking joking. Anyway, so lock or not, string tied together or not, he opens the fucking closet door. He goes in, sniffs out the backpack wherever it is, if it's on the floor, if it's up where my clothes are on top. He'll go and get it. He'll drag it down out of my closet usually with his nasty little wrangly teeth. And then he will claw and rip with his teeth the dresses out of the top of the backpack until he can reach the slippers at the bottom. So many a time, I have come home to this backpack that was in my closet, in our bedroom, on the floor, with the clothes spewing out of it, out of the top, and then the pink slippers just, like, destroyed all over the floor.
It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like he values these slippers more than you. And maybe it's just time to gift something that he would enjoy. Oh, that's a look.
You know, here's the thing. I was going to. I was so fed up. I was like, you know what? You fucking destroyed these. Like, just take them. But then I was like, then he wins.
Okay, so it's like a sort of a metaphorical thing.
Yes.
Like,
not only does he win, but then he learns, oh, if I destroy shit enough, I can just have it. Like, it's just mine. Because that's the way that this little fucker thinks. He's like, if I just do something often enough and I don't get yelled at often enough and they just let it go, I can just keep doing it. Because that's what he does.
Oh my God, playing like deep psychological mind games with your like 2 IQ cat.
He knows when he does something wrong and he does it anyway. And then he sasses you when you yell at him.
Jenny's the same way. She jumps up on the counter no matter how many times I take her down.
Does she sass at you whenever you yell at her? She go, brrr?
No. She doesn't go, brrr. Brrr. Okay, that was actually not bad.
Okay, agree to disagree.
Something interesting happened with my closet recently as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that there's a segue to bring this up.
Okay.
But, so recently, my top shelf of my closet was coming out of the wall. On one side, I had 2 heavy storage containers. I thought, well, this is going to fall any day now.
Okay.
So I let the maintenance people know. I called them twice. They never got back to me. I emailed the landlady's assistant, and she got back to me and scheduled the repairs for the following day. They came in. They fixed it. Everything looked great.
Okay.
I'm sleeping the next night. And I'm like, my eyes are kind of bleary. I open them, and then bang! Just the whole fucking shelf comes off the wall. My 2 storage containers explode across the floor.
Oh no, did they break?
They broke open and everything spilled out.
Oh no.
And I thought, well, I'll handle this tomorrow. And went
just
back
roll
to
over,
bed.
go back to sleep.
Yes, but now my clothes are horizontal, hanging onto a shelf that is no longer really attached to the wall.
I love how you called them to fix it, and it was broken before, but
it was fine.
It was fine. And then you asked them to fix it, and that's when it gets fucked.
I think they just don't like me.
Yeah, I think they did it on purpose.
Probably.
Yeah.
Welcome to My Existential Crisis.
The podcast where we talk about
all the things that make us question our entire sense of self.
My name is Madison Epley.
And my name is Dylan Berger.
All right, Dylan, let's dive into this tale that I have for you today.
Yes, quite a flippery tale at that.
It is a flippery tale. If you are not familiar, there's usually, it goes around every once in a blue moon. This little news story. It's like, women has sex with dolphins. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, how is this news?
Daily Mail, more like the Daily Tale.
But it's kind of a real story. And that's the story that I'm going to tell you today.
Lovely.
This is the story of Margaret Lovatt.
Yeah.
And this is all taken from the documentary about her and her life and her time with this dolphin.
Yes.
Called The Girl Who Talked to Dolphins.
Talk to dolphins.
And I will say, despite the graphic nature of the tabloid covers, it's existential for a lot of other reasons.
Okay, I see.
It's kind of a batshit crazy story. That's really only one small part of it.
And honestly, it's perfect timing. Valentine's Day just passed. Love is in the air.
Yeah, honestly, what better way to experience love than between two mammals who are star-crossed lovers. They can't communicate with each other, but they can in some ways.
In some way. In the ways that count.
In the ways that count. In the ways that matter. Exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, the Girl Who Talked to Dolphins documentary was big for my sources. I also used The Atlantic, The Guardian, All That's Interesting, History Defined, The Science Times, and Elite Daily.
I am so ready.
All right, so
I think.
For some background information, people have dreamed about talking to animals for decades, probably as long as humans and animals have coexisted together. So whether it's trying to talk to your pet cat about fucking leaving the slippers alone in the closet, or learning what's making your livestock sick. You know, the language barrier has always divided us. So in the 1950s, researchers were intent to study animal language and try to teach them how we speak. Most of these projects grinded to a halt with little progress being made, but John Lilly, the main researcher that we'll be talking about, was determined to reopen and explore the possibilities of animals speaking with us. John Lilly was an incredibly smart, physics-oriented California Tech grad scientist who worked in aviation physiology laboratory during World War II to study how human bodies change and interact with flight.
Oh,
it's really, really cool. Also, fun fact, he was friends with actor Jeff Bridges.
Ah, okay.
You know Jeff Bridges?
Yes.
The Big Lebowski? The Big Lebowski?
Big Lebowski?
The Big Lebowski? The Big Lebowski?
Yes, I've seen one of those movies.
Yeah. So after the war,
I haven't even seen The Big Lebowski.
You haven't seen The Big Lebowski?
I saw part of it. I never finished it.
It's a cinematic masterpiece.
I mean, that's why you love White Russian so much.
It is. That's me and my dad's drink. I loved that drink before I could drink. That's a true story. I knew I'd love it because my dad's like, it tastes like chocolate milk. And we'd make a joke about White Russians.
Oh, God. There isn't just milk in the bottle. There's also Bailey's and whatever else.
It's really
what is
good.
inside a White Russian exactly?
What's in a White Russian?
Yeah.
Bailey's, Kahlua, and then cream.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. If you're really fancy, you'll put some like Pinnacle.
If you're really fancy, you'll use Pinnacle.
Some vodka.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Like the whipped cream flavor vodka.
Yeah, the Pinnacle vodka, but not. You wouldn't just drink it alone. It would be in with the Baileys and the Kahlua and the cream, so it tastes like chocolate milk. It tastes like a milkshake.
You would drink it alone. You would drink it alone.
I would.
Yeah.
I would.
That's a drink that you typically drink alone.
It is. It's really fun. I forget where we were at. We were out at like, I don't drink very often, but when I do, it's usually like socially at a bar with friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we were watching one of David's friends play in a band. Hi, Matt. And we were at the bar with all of his friends, and I ordered 2 Long Islands, which is like usually what I get.
One for each hand.
Yes. And then I ordered a White Russian, and everyone was like, what the fuck is this girl doing? And like, wow, like what on earth? And I'm like, this is just what I drink, man.
Never had it, but man. But hey, I'll try anything twice, you know?
Yeah. So highly recommend. Anyway, this researcher was really good friends with Jeff Bridges. So after the war, he ended up working, not Jeff Bridges, John Lilly. After World War II, he ended up working as a respectable researcher for the American National Institute of Mental Health, where his area of expertise was what animal brains could tell us about our own. His wife, Mary, would work with him in his laboratory, and she described his fascination with brains in general, just like how they work, like why are they the way that they are, and it was really actually very far ahead of the scientific community in this regard. I mean, and even to this day, we don't fully understand how the brain works, not nearly as much as we should for having been a species for thousands of years. And most of all, he was fascinated with bottlenose dolphins, which are considered some of the smartest and most ancient creatures on Earth.
Oh, the range.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
What note was that?
That's my dolphin noise for you. 25 million years is how long they've been on Earth, with a bigger brain than humans have, which is much larger than they're used to working with, these researchers.
Can you imagine just like having a brain larger than humans, but no appendages to actually manipulate your reality with?
Right? I mean, at least like octopuses, crazy. Octopi, freaking crazy. Have you seen them like get out of like these like complex situations? Like if they're in a locked box, it's crazy.
My Octopus Teacher is a very beautiful movie.
I have not seen it, but I know what happens at the end, and
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's kind of anyway. It'll make me cry. But anyway, this is
you haven't seen it?
No, because I know what happens, and I know it's gonna rip me apart.
Now I'm gonna cry.
Well, this story isn't much better actually. So
okay.
So Lilly began doing brain experiments on the dolphins who were in captivity in Florida to measure their reactions. And as he was working, his wife spotted something that would change the course of his life and the intellectual studies. In 1957, while John was working with a team nearby, Mary Lilly, his wife, noticed something that they had missed. It seemed like the dolphins were trying to imitate human sound. After John would give a voice command, the dolphin would try to respond with the same voices to imitate what they heard. This really shocked the researchers, obviously, because if this was true, dolphins were indeed trying to communicate back with humans, and this would be a really great discovery, like one of the greatest in animal science history yet. He described the moment as his aha moment in his career, and his hypothesis was that dolphins had an ambition to communicate with and like humans, a breakthrough of global and historical significance which could replace humans at the top of intelligent creatures. Jack Lilly believed this would revolutionize animal communication studies, and for the very first time, there was another species that seemed to be trying to make contact with us. Now, when you hear species trying to make contact with us, what do you think of?
Fungi.
Not quite where I was going with that.
Okay.
But good guess. So actually, Lilly's ideas captured the public's ambition, but on one area in particular, NASA.
Oh, okay.
Amidst the 60s space race, Lilly's idea resonated with NASA researchers trying to explore extraterrestrial life.
Oh.
The NASA team was led by Frank Drake, the founder of the SETI Institute, which is a nonprofit organization located in the Silicon Valley, which stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. They were part of a government-funded project to use radio telescopes to listen for signals from other intelligent life in the galaxy. For them, Lilly's work was potentially groundbreaking as it would help them prepare to understand the complexities and challenges of communicating with other intelligent species.
Oh, sort of like the movie Arrival.
Sort of like a what?
The movie Arrival. Have you seen that one?
No.
It doesn't matter. Just like these big octopi come down in these spaceships, and then the woman in the movie has to like learn how to like communicate with them through their language, which is like a series of circles.
Okay.
Wasn't a very good movie. I didn't enjoy it.
But I would imagine, yes, that is very similar to what they're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So Lilly realized that NASA's interest would open a ton of doors for him. NASA was incredibly well-funded, which was his chance to get the funding for research on a whole new level. So he pitched the Space Administration on the idea that they needed a model organism to experiment with in the prospect of encountering extraterrestrials. So in 1961, Lilly bought a white modern villa on the shore of St. Thomas's, one of the American Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, where he would conduct his research. He was finally equipped with the laboratory of his dreams that would house dolphins.
Laboratory of his creams. Gotta edit that out. I love the idea of using another animal, or at least forming a mutually beneficial partnership with another species to help us learn how to communicate with extraterrestrial life. At the same time, we invented another species called AI, and the communication between ourselves and AI has been mostly practical and for our benefit rather than the, I guess the growth and development of our, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Do you know what I mean? It's
it's more for our benefit than anybody else's benefit. It's more for like in individual use.
Exactly. And I imagine that if we could speak with dolphins, I don't think they benefit much from that. Also, what would we ask them exactly?
It's a great question.
What's it like down there?
Basically.
We know. We've been down there.
We know. Well, we have explored more of space than we have of the ocean. Did you know that?
Yeah, so we could develop a SEAL Team 6, so to speak, and have them dive into the depths of the ocean.
Ask some and get some interrogations going on there.
Excellent.
Slam some people up against some coral reef.
Oh, okay.
If they're not willing to tell us what it's like.
Yeah, weaponize the dolphins and make them sort of our enforcers.
Speaking of the deep, did you just see the picture of the anglerfish?
I did.
For the very first time it was captured on camera.
That was so beautiful.
Did you know that fish died shortly afterwards?
I believe it.
That fish wanted to come from the depths of like 60,000 feet to see the sun one last time because it had never experienced it. And after seeing the sun, it died.
Maybe you just got bad directions.
Nope. I like to think it was a purposeful choice.
I think so as well. I think it's very beautiful that it would give up its life to experience something other than what it's used to.
It's a real life Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun. And then he died.
And then he fucking died. Oh, God.
I'm going to cry again.
Beautiful. What a beautiful moment captured.
It really was. Yeah, it was very poignant. Yeah. So anyway, moving on. The researchers quickly discovered a lot of things about dolphin behavior, such as that dolphins respond extremely quickly to human interaction. Even during playtime, they seem to prefer humans to other dolphins. Lilly found his team of other passionate scientists who would help him conduct his research, one of the main members of the team being Gregory Bateman, who is an anthropologist and linguistics scholar who would spend years studying human linguistics, but his other interest turned to animals and studying how they communicate with each other and how that can inform us in our own language.
Right.
So he had experience with otters, octopi, and many other animals to study their personal relationships, and so they brought him in to experience dolphins' relationships and try to help them out. So
getting firsthand experience.
Yes. Oh.
I don't understand why that analogy is difficult here.
Yeah. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see later on. So Lilly was focusing on their physiology. Bateman was focusing on their communication style. They also enlisted a vet to ensure the health of the dolphins. They created the perfect ecosystem and the best possible environment for the dolphins to live in while in captivity.
The perfect ecosystem.
Yes, the perfect ecosystem. But in 1962, the lab had a visitor.
Oh.
Mary Howell. She was a college dropout in search of an adventure. As a child, she was inspired by a book called Miss Kelly, which was a story about a cat who communicated with humans. And this inspired her interest in animal-human communication. So during Christmas, 1963, her brother-in-law mentioned, hey, did you know there's a secret laboratory at the eastern end of the island where they are working with dolphins? And she's like, what is this crazy thing? So not knowing anything else about it besides that, she decides to just up and pay the lab a visit early one morning. And she's just like, I was curious.
I would be curious too.
Yeah. She said that she drove down there, down a muddy hill, and at the bottom of the cliff was this big white villa. She heard rumors about this island with a strange house on the beach and wanted to investigate for herself and become a part of it. So she approached the isolated house and wanted to offer herself as a volunteer. Dr. Bateman sat her on the spiral staircase and asked her to just watch the dolphins and just write down what you think you're seeing. And she was incredibly perceptive. She was able to write in great detail, not just about what she saw in the patterns, what the dolphins were doing, but also making inferences and noticing these patterns in their behavior. So she was invited back anytime to volunteer as she liked. And she did. There were 3 animals in the lab: Peter, Pamela, and Sissy. They were all previously used to film the movie Flipper in Florida before being transported to the islands for research. Sissy was the biggest, most dominant of the 3. Pam was shy, taking a full year before the doctors could even come close enough to stroke her. And then Peter. Peter was an immature male who annoyed his sisters. Pamela would always brush him off and push him away to be alone, but he was incredibly social. And by February 1964, the lab was in full operation. While Jack Lilly was off sharing his findings at speaking events, he left the research back to the team at home. He tasked Margaret with studying their mimicry, trying to encourage the dolphins to copy the specific sounds of human speech. Mary focused in on Peter because she had not had any previous human-like sound training, so Peter was like a blank slate because he didn't know anything.
Okay.
So on top of the clicks, whistles, and other noises that dolphins make, they can pucker their blowholes at the top of their head like lips, which is exhibited when they're trying to replicate human sound. So she would basically do like phonics with the dolphin.
Oh, interesting.
And like do different like sounds and like different like letters. That this is the sound that this makes. This is the sound that this makes, and like try to get the dolphins to imitate it back. So her first goal was to listen to Peter while she spoke, and then for her to listen while he spoke to set up like this conversational pattern between the two of them. Mm-hmm. Peter was very reluctant at first, but then he started to warm up to Margaret and what she was asking for. And she would talk to him just the way that you and I would speak to each other, or like how you would speak to a young child who was just learning to speak. She would ask Peter to repeat sounds or letters or numbers, and he would. And not the entire sentence, mind you, but the very thing she was asking him to repeat. So if she would say, Peter, I want you to say this, he would say that.
He would successfully say that.
He would say that, or at least try to imitate it as much as he could. So it's not just like Peter was repeating the entire sentence she was saying.
Right.
It was specifically the parts that he was asking her to repeat. So he understood that much.
And he was capable of replicating those sounds?
Yes and no. You could tell that he was trying. And she was trying to help show him and like teach him how to do it. And like with the mechanics that they have. I have more information on that. I wanted to see like where that was.
Sorry, I'm just stuck up on Puckered the Blowhole. I was not expecting that. I feel like I've been punched.
Well, you're going to get punched again pretty soon. So after a while, this mimicry work would seem to stall out, but then Margaret had an idea. Every evening, all the researchers would get in their cars, pull the garage door down, and people would just leave for the night. And Margaret thought, you have these 3 big brains that are all just sitting there for hours, and you're wondering what they're thinking. She thought it was crazy that everybody would just leave because it was evening. So she insisted on staying and wanted to immerse herself with them and live amongst them to continue the work. Mm-hmm. Lily loved the idea, and they made it happen. They completely redesigned the layout and structure of the house. They drew up sketches of what it should look like. Every single room of the house became waterproof, so the dolphins could go where she went, and they could immerse themselves together. So before, they just had like this pool, essentially. But now they had flooded the entire house. And it's really cool, these pictures that you see of Margaret. She has like a desk that she's like writing on, and she's in a bathing suit and like working on a stool. Oh. And there's just like Peter right there. Like just next to her. Interesting. She wanted to flood the place knee-deep all throughout. It was a domestic dolphinarium in a semi-aquatic environment. Dolphinarium.
Oh, goodness.
And she lived there day and night amongst the dolphins. Peter would actually sleep next to her every evening for as long as she slept. Aww. So she also immersed him completely as she would if you were trying to teach a child English, like immersion. Uh-huh. She would speak in single words simply so that he could follow along. And like I had touched on a little bit before, but I'll go into a little bit more detail now. They weren't great at enunciation with words, but were really phenomenal with inflection. So like if they couldn't get like how we have in general, there were very obvious anatomical restrictions with how they communicate, why they couldn't enunciate well, right. But they were trying, which was like the key thing. So like the M, for example, it's very hard and impossible for their structure to replicate.
Because they don't have lips.
Exactly. Like we have our mouths, we have the tongues, right. Our teeth, all of those things. They don't have any of that. They they have it, but it's very different from ours is. So for an M, he would use the water to bubble and warble the sound to get it closer to the muffled M.
Interesting.
Right? With his little blowhole, he'd go under a little bit to like get the right sound to imitate the mm. And then also to try to help understand how she was making the noise, she drew attention to her mouth for him to see. She actually she painted her face white and then outlined her lips in black, almost like a clown, to better showcase how she was making the sound and like how she was moving her mouth to do that, since his blowhole could do the same. or at least very close to it.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So through all of Peter's speech lessons and voice training, Margaret learned that when we had nothing to do was when we did the most. He was very, very interested in my anatomy. If I was sitting here and my legs were in the water, he would come up and look at the back of my knee for a long time. He wanted to know how that thing worked, and I was so charmed by it.
All right. Okay.
All right. It's
Charmed.
a Valentine's Day story.
Right.
It's Valentine's, Dylan.
Honestly, it's beautiful stuff.
Yeah. So,
Oh my God. Who hasn't looked at the back of their partner's knee and wondered how it worked? How does that work?
Maybe you should do that more often, Dylan.
Yeah, maybe I should. I think that many of my relationships have been.
That's
it got to the
failed.
point. Yeah, truly, it got to the point where we were going to progress, but I didn't know how their knee worked, and that was an obstacle.
I wasn't ready for that. So when Dr. Lilly went back to the dolphin house, he was delighted and enthusiastic about the progress that Margaret was making.
Mm-hmm.
However, Dr. Bateman, the linguistics professor, disagreed, thinking that his work with Sissy and Pamela in the pool downstairs was far more important than what Margaret was trying to accomplish. In an interview with Dr. Bateman's wife, she kind of laughs at Margaret's work, and she laughs it off as not her cup of tea. They were very passive aggressive and towards Margaret and what she was doing. But Margaret persevered. Peter was interested in everything Margaret was interested in, and soon NASA was interested in seeing the progress that was being made. So they sent a famous researcher and astronomer, Carl Sagan,
Really?
to check it out. It was very clear during this visit that while Margaret was making commendable efforts, Peter was a very, very long way from being able to understand and use English.
Right.
So instead of trying to get them to speak our language like the Batemans, they encouraged her to focus on figuring out how they communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
The Batemans' prime goals shuffled to see how complex a dolphin could communicate with another at a time. So they planned to have 2 dolphins, one per tank, separated with a wall, so they could not see each other. They could only hear the phonations that they were making. And the goal was to teach one dolphin a unique way to obtain food and see if it could communicate with the other dolphin across the wall through sound alone, how to do the same thing.
It's interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I also know that, what's the term for it? So there were studies done about mice on one side of the country being taught how to learn a maze correctly and get to the end and get food. And when it gained that information, mice on the other side of the country were better able to navigate that same maze.
I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah, so I think it's some kind of collective unconscious that we share information within our species.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guess what?
What?
This didn't work. Never worked. The dolphins did not succeed in communicating with each other.
Well, they're not mice.
They're not mice. They're not mice, exactly. And despite the criticism from the NASA scientists and the Batemans, Dr. Lilly encouraged Margaret to continue her work in trying to teach the dolphins English. While Peter's speech was never perfect, it got better. It had tone. He was finding unique ways to make the right sounds through phonics. He was giving space between words and forming vowels better to give shape to the words. Margaret and Peter would train 6 days a week, and they would spend their day off in the sea pool downstairs with Pam and Sissy, just chilling out. Yeah. So while life continued at the Dolphin House, Dr. Lilly's interests on the mainland, because remember he's telling about the research that he's doing, they were shifting a bit. It was the mid-1960s, and a very new, mind-altering drug hit the scene. LSD.
The D stands for dolphin.
Yes. Yeah. Language-sounding dolphins.
Language-sounding dolphins. Incredible stuff.
Yep.
That was in the 60s even.
It was. Yeah, absolutely.
So what do they do with that?
So brain scientists like Lilly, because that's what he was. He was he was into that. He became fascinated with learning how this drug affected the brain and how the brain reacted to it. So he began, as one might do, experimenting on himself, convinced that it created new and exciting opportunities to explore the mind and learn about the brain.
For science.
Yeah, for science. He would be very direct with his team when he was going to inject LSD.
Inject?
Inject.
Holy shit.
But they didn't want anything to do with that.
Okay.
His friend laughed when interviews when he described the change in Lily, saying that he went from this buttoned-up white coat scientist to this full-blown hippie after a while. And Margaret also started to become a little bit concerned with Lily's experimentation with these mind-altering drugs, but she also had another problem.
What's that? She was falling in love?
Peter's budding sexuality.
Oh, there we go.
Margaret said that, quote, Peter liked to be with her.
Oh, gosh. The first rule of dolphin experiments, do not fall in love.
Don't fall in love.
Gosh.
They didn't learn that, apparently. So, Peter...
Here we go.
This is so uncomfortable.
You're looking like you're having a hard time with this sentence.
I really am. I can't look at you.
Peter did what?
Peter would rub himself on her hand or knee or foot, and she allowed it, and said it didn't make her uncomfortable, long as it wasn't too rough. He'd actually caused some minor injuries on her legs from pushing. And when he was too rambunctious, she would send him down to the sea pool to play with the girls to try to get his energy out. But as his urges grew, being sent down to the sea pool every time he was getting squirrely was proving to be too disruptive to the work that they were trying to do. So Margaret decided that the only way to continue working was to relieve Peter manually when he had those urges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, folks, for listening. This has been My Existential Crisis. Where can they find us?
Nowhere.
So they relieving him manually.
Yes. And she Margaret described it as, quote, very precious and gentle. Described it as sexual on his part, but not on hers. Although, though she wouldn't describe it as that way, she would describe it as intimate. For her, she said it became like a routine maintenance to get out of the way so that she could continue her work.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she was there to just get to know Peter, and that was also Peter.
Routine maintenance.
The vet said that he understood that Margaret would be fine and wouldn't be affected by it, but he worried about Peter. The dolphin was madly in love with her.
Of course.
Of course. The two continued to bond and grow closer than ever, but Lily, further out of the picture, Dr. Bateman began to seriously become skeptical of Margaret's work. He was very firm and clear that what he saw Margaret was doing was just like a circus trick and not actual research.
Talk about fish bait.
And for Bateman and many others, it was very clear that Peter was just mimicking Margaret's noises and not really fully understanding what she was saying or what was being said to him.
I see, okay.
So like Dr. Bateman's son said in an interview, he doesn't understand who in their right mind would think that this was sorry, just so funny. Dr. Bateman's son said in an interview, quote, he didn't understand who in their right mind would think that that is the way to learn communication with animals. You don't teach them some of how you speak, but learn about how they speak and go from there. And at this point, investors and other financiers of the Dolphin House were growing more and more doubtful after years of no results. Not just from Margaret, but from Dr. Bateman as well. He was also failing, so he had a lot to say, but not like he was doing much better over there.
Right.
And Dr. Lilly was becoming increasingly desperate for backers to continue to fund his experiments that turned to the one thing he put off doing. So he thought, what if you use this powerful drug that's known for opening your mind and taking it to expand your depth and grasp of another creature's language?
Depth and grasp.
And while you're... What?
Grasp?
Grasp.
Really?
Yikes.
Okay, so I don't want to interrupt, but is he going to give the dolphin LSD?
And while you're at it, why don't you give some to the dolphin? so they're off. So just like a little bit more open to the communicative world.
Hell yeah.
Themselves.
Oh, fully on board for that.
Yeah. So Lily coerced Margaret to be an assistant for administering the LSD to the dolphins. Mm-hmm. And she said that she would do it as long as they didn't give it to Peter.
Gotta give these dolphins trust issues.
Yeah. They didn't know what would happen, clearly. And they weren't prepared for it by any means. And from what they could tell, nothing happened with microdosing for the dolphins.
Okay.
Desperate for something to continue his research and elicit a response, he showed just how far he had come from this genuine scientific researcher by coming up with an even more unusual and cruel idea. So dolphins have very sensitive hearing. echolocation and all. They do that shit. And since they use the sound waves to react to their environment, this guy decides that when the LSD wasn't working fast enough for him, he grabbed a fucking jackhammer and just started jackhammering around the house in order to get a response from them in some type of way. But they didn't. And so that was that. Uh-huh. All that confirmed was that Lily and the others on the team were just very far off from their strategies and goals at this point.
I think they're onto something.
Yeah. So everyone left with their family and they went back home. And they were just like tapped out of this project. And in the summer of 1966, all the funding was pulled. Lily was racking up debts, still very deep into drug culture. He lost focus on his initial project and his attention and just drifted away. He wasn't interested in it anymore. So the Dolphin House had to close, but decommissioning it wasn't easy because what do you do with these dolphins now that this is over?
They're used to living in a house now.
That's true, exactly.
They can't go back to the ocean.
What do you do?
Right.
So he decided to move them to the mainland in another lab for entirely different research.
That sucks.
And this also meant the end of Margaret and Peter's relationship. Margaret said, quote, "He wasn't mine. We couldn't elope. We couldn't rush off into the sea and disappear and hide." You could see Dylan's face right now.
What? I mean, from the story so far, it makes it seem as though she was doing these things reluctantly.
Yeah. And then with that quote, it kind of...
It sounds like a love letter.
It does. It does.
But hey, who hasn't looked at a dolphin and thought, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh.
Holy fucking shit.
Yeah. So...
Okay, please continue.
After months of living almost continually with Peter, they had to just part ways. And like the vet had predicted, Margaret spent her last day at the lab with Peter just like usual. She was chilling and hanging out. They didn't work. They just enjoyed each other's company. It was very special and privileged. But she knew that it was coming to an end. She knew that what it meant. But Peter had no idea. He thought this was just another day. He didn't understand the gravity of the situation.
Right.
It was just another evening with his favorite person.
Ironically, she couldn't tell him.
No. Ironically, she couldn't tell him.
Yeah.
That's actually really poignant. A tear is going to fall from my eye. So Margaret and the vet thought these dolphins were going to a good home. They had been told that they had been checked by a vet when they arrived, and they arrived healthy. But in reality, they were in a very tiny, cramped enclosure with no natural light and cramped tanks. This tiny, nightmarish room was a very different environment from the Dolphin House. It was really hard to watch the footage for this because you see like this beautiful dolphin house and like it really was the perfect environment for like a dolphin if it had to be in captivity. And then you see just like this, you hear them crying and squealing and being manhandled by people in this tiny tank with water only like mid-shin length high. Like the tank was quite literally just big enough to hold them. It's a really hard watch. So I wouldn't recommend it. Just take my word for it.
Okay.
And Dr. Lily's friend actually recalled that when visiting the labs that it was, quote, awful, to be frank. And the first thing that hit you was the smell. Dolphins urinate and defecate 3 to 5 times the amount that people do. So all three being in this tiny room and like in quite literally a plastic portable swimming pool was incredible. He also recalled that the water was heavily chlorinated to try to clean it, which is not good. So all at this time, Margaret was oblivious to the conditions that Peter was being kept in when weeks later, shortly after she had parted ways with Peter, she received a phone call about Peter from John.
I thought you were going to say from Peter.
No, not from Peter.
She picks it up?
Unfortunately not. It was from John and Lily directly. Peter had committed suicide.
Oh my fucking God.
It was self-induced asphyxiation. See, they are not unconscious air breathers like we are. Every breath a dolphin takes is a conscious effort. And if life becomes too unbearable, the dolphins will just take a deep breath and sink to the bottom of the pool. And that's exactly what happened to Peter.
Oh, God. That completely blindsided me.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So not only...
Did he leave a note?
He did not leave a note, but it is not unheard of for dolphins to die of a broken heart like that. And also from being shocked, the shock of being torn from his favorite person, the shock of being uprooted from this wonderful environment to this cramped room and squalor conditions. It was just too much. And again, Margaret could rationalize what happened, but Peter couldn't.
God, that's so sad.
Oddly enough, the dolphin house still stands to this day. It was just, it's more money if you're just going to demolish it. So it's still there. It's falling apart, but it's still there. It's dilapidated. Only the shell exists that once housed the strangest experiment in the history of animal science. But yeah, basically today, they just say that this was a really incredibly complex and very well-funded mimicry experiment. So like, if a parrot says, probably want a cracker? And you give him a cracker, have you broken through to an alien species?
No.
I
don't think so.
Unfortunately, no. Margaret believes that it would have worked, but the experiment was stopped too early.
I'm kind of inclined to believe that some attempt at communication with dolphins could be successful under different circumstances.
I would say so.
In fact, there was some news that came out recently that AI was being used to help people communicate with whales.
Really?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
By analyzing their resonance.
I think you mentioned that.
Right.
Yeah.
So AI could potentially be used to communicate with other animals.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. So I will say, despite all of those awful things, Congress did pass the U.S. Marine Mammal Protection Act for organizations like Greenpeace. Because of this, they were like, hey, we got to treat animals better when we're researching on them. So it did pass some good laws in that regard. And Margaret actually married the photographer who took the pictures of her with Peter in the lab. And remarkably, they stayed in the dolphin house for years and converted it to a family home where they raised their 3 girls before moving away. And it is now the dilapidated home that you might see in pictures. Again, Dylan.
I kind of wish I hadn't known that part. I wanted to exist in the fantasy of just that cinematic ending to this story of this courtship. Yeah. Remember when he was trying to figure out how knees work?
Yeah, remember how nice that was?
And then she manually handled him?
She manually manhandled him.
She manhandled him manually? And then they parted ways and he killed himself.
Yeah. Take that, my octopus teacher.
I mean, octopi have plenty of arms. Or legs, I don't know.
But yeah, that is the story of the girl who talked to dolphins. And again, although that was one very sensationalized aspect of the story, there's a lot of other batshit stuff going on in there too.
And this is really perfect for Valentine's Day.
I think so too.
Hey, to our listeners, reach out to the Peter in your life. Be grateful for your boyfriend or your girlfriend
who your Peter is.
Yeah. Your significant other, your partner, your fiance, your husband or wife, or your dolphin. And
we can communicate with each other. So why don't we?
Wow. Quite gorgeous.
I know, right?
Very poignant way to end this story.
I tried.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that story, Madison. What are your general takeaways?
Welcome. General thoughts, I guess? I love how... Have you seen SNL, the Stefan sketch, where Stefan is like the city guide, and he's like, this club has everything.
Yes, 100%.
That's kind of like what the story had. This club, this, I feel like Stefan needs to do an opener for this story. Has everything. LSD, dolphins, alien species.
A house underwater.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's a hell of a story.
Yeah.
It has really everything you want. Action, adventure, romance.
Yeah, I figured I would take a little... Despite the grim ending, I figured I would take a little lighter take. Honestly, this is the Romeo and Juliet of our time.
Mm. Do you think that when Margaret passes away, she goes to heaven, do you think Peter's going to be there waiting for her?
Huh.
And will he be a dolphin?
I like to think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, Dylan?
No, I don't. I honestly don't have many, if any, parting thoughts. I think that we really explored this pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, I would say so. Talk to the Peter in your life, everybody. You know who it is.
Yeah.
They couldn't communicate, so you should.
Oh, that's so nice.
For them. Communicate for them.
Yeah.
thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much for following us and
sticking with us through our little hiatus of illness and
weather
technological
issues.
Plagues.
A lot of different things. And if you want to reach out to us, where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Emmy Crisis Pod. Maybe we should get a Blue Sky account.
I think that'd be a good idea.
I think so too. Maybe we should do that. Yeah.
Or at Marble Folk on Instagram.
Yeah. Or Madison.Epley. You can look at some engagement pictures eventually if you'd like to see them. I didn't even talk about that, but it's fine. It's totally fine. If you want to send us an email with some suggestions or just to say hi, you can do so at myexistentialcrisispodcast@gmail.com. That's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah. Have a happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye.
Bye.